time to react to the mysterious death of Charles C. Morgan. I think this guy might have been. Wait, it was supposed to be the ex-Russian spy.
This week on Buzzfeed Unsolved, we investigate.
I'm pretty sure that this guy was like poisoned with like polonium 210 or something like that, 220. I know because I did research on it for Goretober, and I honestly left the specific type of radiation kind of vague because it still fucks you up. So let's watch this guy. Let's see how this guy got killed and who we think did. It was the big red country.
The suspicious death of Alexander Litvinenko, an ex-Russian spy who died on UK soil following a meeting with former KGB contacts. There's a lot of political intrigue to unpack in this tantalizing and kind of tragic caper. So,
what is tantalizing? Are you tantalized?
I mean, it's just intriguing.
Anytime I hear tantalized, I just imagine like,
Dude.
Is that tantalizing?
I think it's more like you're intrigued. It's very unique.
Okay, good. Glad we've established that.
Cool.
I gotta
Who
Google
was the
tantalizing
ill-fated
means.
Alexander Litvinenko? Born in Russia, Litvinenko began working for the KGB in the 1980s and eventually became a lieutenant colonel after the KGB became the FSB, the Counterintelligence and Internal Security Service in Russia. There, he is believed to have had a falling out over FSB corruption with his ultimate superior, Vladimir.
Oh, tantalizing means tormenting or teasing with the sight or promise of something unobtainable. Like not knowing how the guy, like not knowing 100% who killed him.
Putin.
Who ordered to kill him.
Litvinenko also wrote a book called Blowing Up Russia, Terror from Within after leaving the service. In the book, he asserts that in 1999, FSB agents bombed apartment blocks in Moscow and other cities. These bombings were previously said to have been carried out by Chechen separatists, but in the book, Litvinenko suggested that these bombings were used as a justification for the Russian invasion of Chechnya for the second time.
So he's burning all his bridges.
Yeah.
Which is a gutsy choice if your previous employer was the KGB.
Well, you gotta imagine that if you know all this intel and it's bad intel, you would have a considerable amount of guilt if you are a good person.
Mm-hmm.
And he strikes me as a good guy. I mean, he doesn't care what happens to him, obviously.
Maybe he's trying to clear his conscience a bit.
Yeah, but you know by clearing your conscience, that's gonna come with some consequences for you.
Heavy price to pay.
In 2000, citing persecution, Litvinenko fled to the UK, where he was granted asylum. Once in the UK, he did not conceal his loathing for Russia's leader, criticizing Putin publicly. Litvinenko was part of a circle of exiled Russian critics, and in 2003, Litvinenko was recruited by MI6. He provided information about senior figures in the Kremlin and their connections to organized crime in Russia, while also possessing information about the Russian mafia's work in Spain. Litvinenko informed authorities he had faced harassment and death threats essentially since he fled to the UK. For example, Major Andrei Pankin, a former colleague, reportedly contacted him in 2001 saying, quote, "You will either be brought back in a body bag to Russia or pushed in front of a train," end quote. Litvinenko is believed to have become a British citizen in 2006. The same year, he mysteriously died.
At this point, I would turn my house into a full-blown panic room.
Yeah, but is
a
that
panic house?
Is that living?
That'd be a good sequel. No, it is living, technically. I mean, it's better than being dead.
Is it? You mean you're essentially dead at that point. You're dead to the world.
But not to yourself.
Yeah, but you're just living in a panic room for the rest of your life. That doesn't seem fun.
How do you get food in there?
Watch a funny movie.
I'd rather die.
You'd rather die than sit around eating popcorn and watching funny movies?
I guess I'm a bit of an extrovert, I would say. So if I had to be forced to live in this fortress of solitude and security.
Invite your friends over.
Yeah, but they probably wouldn't want to come because they know, oh, we can't go over there because we'll be marked 10.
Yeah, that's true.
On November 1st, 2006, Litvinenko had tea at the Millennium Hotel in central London with Andrei Lugovoy and Dmitry Koftin, two former Russian agents. It's said that Litvinenko had been planning to travel to Spain with Lugovoy and that he was investigating the Russian mafia's connections to Spain. It's worth noting that Litvinenko had also been investigating the murder of Anna Politkovskaya, a Russian journalist who, prior to being shot at her apartment block in Moscow the month before, had received death threats. After this meeting with Lugovoy
She was
and
calling out
Koftin,
Russian
Litvinenko
sketchy
became sick
people.
and vomited all night. He was admitted to a London hospital 3 days later, where his condition worsened. When BBC Russian service interviewed Litvinenko on November 11th, Litvinenko said that he was the victim of a, quote, serious poisoning, end quote, and that he was in, quote, very bad shape, end quote. On November 23rd, 2006, Litvinenko died with his family beside him. This was 3 weeks after his meeting with Lugovoy and Koftin. Doctors were not able to diagnose Litvinenko's conditions while he was hospitalized, but in the hours before his death, test results confirmed tremendously high levels of the substance polonium-210, a radioactive isotope in his body, finally revealing the cause of his sickness. Dr. Nathaniel Carey, a Home Office forensic pathologist, later said of the postmortem examination, quote, "It has been described as the most dangerous postmortem examination ever undertaken in the Western world, and I think that is probably right," end quote. Litvinenko, this entire time that he was at the hospital, had been saying to reporters, "I think I've been poisoned."
Yeah.
By these two guys specifically.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's the case, if I'm a doctor, I'm now looking for every possible source of poisoning that I can.
Yeah.
And they found it hours before his death. That's 3 weeks.
I'd be pretty pissed.
Yeah, it's not the kind of buzzer beater you want.
No. We've cracked it. Bye.
But where did this poisonous polonium come from? Let's jump in to the theories. The first theory we'll dig into today pertains to the official conclusions of the Litvinenko Inquiry Report, compiled by the chairman of the inquiry, Sir Robert Owen, published on January 21st, 2016, which explains that there is a great deal of evidence implicating Andrei Lugovoy and Dmitry Koftin and their meeting with Litvinenko at the Millennium Hotel's Pine Bar. Forensic evidence indicated high levels of polonium-210 contamination at the Pine Bar, with the greatest polonium-210 readings coming from the inside of one of the teapots and the table where Litvinenko was sitting. None of the other places Litvinenko went that day had any comparable level of contamination. Sir Owen writes, quote, "I am sure that Mr. Lugovoy and Mr. Koftin placed the polonium-210 in the teapot at the Pine Bar on November 1st, 2006. I am also sure that they did this with the intention of poisoning Mr. Litvinenko," end quote. Sir Owen explains that he's certain that they intended to kill Litvinenko and were aware they were using a deadly substance, not, quote, "a truth drug or a sleeping draft," end quote. However, he does not believe they understood exactly what kind of substance they were using, and he is sure Lugovoy and Koftin were poisoning Litvinenko on the orders of someone else. In the report, Owen says that it's likely Litvinenko was poisoned at the FSB's direction, which at the time was led by Nikolai Patrushev. Furthermore, Sir Owen was also certain Lugovoy and Koftin attempted to poison Litvinenko with polonium-210 earlier on October 16th, 2006.
I'm an adult, but sometimes...
Why did you start your sentence off with that?
I am an adult.
You said it in a weird way with a weird cadence.
I am an adult.
Like you don't believe it.
But sometimes I have the mind of a child. And I think you can relate to that.
Yeah, sure.
Because the whole time I'm hearing this, I don't understand how radiation poisoning works.
Yeah, I understand how it works, and sometimes I forget about it, how it works.
Essentially a green glow stick.
Yeah, me too. Or you're envisioning like the case that Doc Brown opens in Back to the Future, and he has to put
just glowing green, them pouring the tea,
like a moon
just
rock.
a glowing green tea that he's drinking.
Yeah, I imagine it's not like that.
No, probably not.
No, it's probably a little bit more
or like the
discreet.
ooze from Turtles 2.
Don't think it's like that either. I think it's a little more discreet. Otherwise, he would have been like, "Oh, this tea looks a little odd.
This tea looks like ooze.
It's also neon, so maybe we shouldn't drink it."
Yeah. What is this, ooze long tea? Okay, you can keep going.
I don't think you're done laughing at your own joke. You want some more time?
No,
Do you need some ooze long tea yourself? So stupid.
Yeah, funny when you say it.
Dumb. All right, well.
You didn't poison this, did you?
I wish I did now. There is plenty of evidence that supports Sir Owen's conclusions. Lugovoy and Koftin left traces of polonium all over their paths, on restaurant tables, in planes, even in an erotic nightclub.
Oh, what the
In fact,
fuck?
during the investigation, approximately 700 people had to be tested for radioactive poisoning, though no one proved seriously sick. The inquiry report portrays Lugovoy and Koftin as careless and bumbling, allowing the
They
polonium
are
to be,
professional
quote,
idiots.
splashed around in hotel bathrooms
They aren't even
and mopped
professional
up with
idiots.
hotel towels that were then left in the hotel, end quote. There is also support for the idea that Lugovoy and Koftin weren't aware of the nature of the poison, given that Lugovoy also told his 8-year-old son to shake hands with Litvinenko after he had consumed the poison. They clearly did not understand the nature of radiation.
No.
Which is funny because they were given the job to administer radiation.
Yeah. Maybe that's why they were. I feel like anyone who did understand the nature of radiation may say, I'm good.
This also makes me feel like obviously Litvinenko and Putin had kind of disagreements in the past. But I bet you Litvinenko was kind of far down on his list in terms of people he wants to whack.
Yes.
So he didn't exactly send out the A squad to go kill this guy. He was like,
Are we going to be poisoned for doing this episode?
possibly.
I'm a little concerned.
Yeah, I think we're gonna die.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, we will.
We're gonna die eventually.
Yeah.
You maybe sooner than others, but
I'd like to live
I'm sure you would.
forever.
Okay, no, that's not gonna happen.
You've never wanted to just see the universe just
Implode?
yeah.
No, because I'm not really an anarchist.
You're just there. No, it's not even anarchy because it's not even disorder. It's just nothing.
The inquiry report also references a suspicious phone call Koftin made to a cook he knew. Koftin was reportedly trying to find a cook that would put, quote, a very expensive poison, end quote, in food or a beverage that Litvinenko would consume. On November 1st at 11:33 a.m., Koftin tried to reach the cook, who was not able to help him. Lugovoy called Litvinenko only 8 minutes later to arrange their meeting at the Millennium Hotel later that day. The report explains, quote, once it had become apparent to Mr. Lugovoy and Mr. Koftin that they would not get any help from the cook, at least not in the short term, they decided to make another attempt to poison Mr. Litvinenko themselves. Their plan, which they subsequently put into effect, was to make this attempt in the Pine Bar of the Millennium Hotel, end quote. The report concludes by saying, quote, the FSB operation to kill Mr. Litvinenko was probably approved by Mr. Patrushev and also by President Putin, end quote. It seems secret evidence revealed in closed hearings of the inquiry contributed to the report's conclusion that Putin and Patrushev probably approved the killing. Who within the Russian state would have had a reason to murder Litvinenko? Well, for starters, he was thought of as a traitor by the FSB. After all, he had claimed the FSB was responsible for the 1999 apartment bombings in Russia that contributed to the Chechen War. It was also known that Litvinenko was working for MI6 and rubbed shoulders with Russian critics Boris Berezovsky and Akhmed Zakayev, a Chechen leader living in exile. The report also noted that the tension between Litvinenko and Putin was personal. In July 2006, Litvinenko publicly described Putin as a pedophile who destroyed tapes of himself having sex with underage boys. And shortly before he died, Litvinenko accused Putin of being behind Anna Politkovskaya's murder in October 2006. The inquiry report notes that Putin and the Kremlin have since rewarded Lugovoy a medal for, quote, services to the fatherland, end quote.
So this is one of those unsolved cases that we sometimes have.
You know who did it,
Yeah.
but we can't prove
You
it.
sort of get what's going on here.
You said I sort of get where the wind is traveling here.
Get
You
'em.
get it.
Yeah, also it doesn't look good when you award one of the main suspects a medal for services to the fatherland.
I mean, what else did he do? Did he do anything else notable?
I don't know. He sure,
He didn't like build a nice gazebo somewhere or
he
something?
sure made London into his fucking circus.
Yeah.
Just radiation everywhere,
Yeesh.
spilling out of his pockets when he's walking down the street. Unbelievable. Lugovoy reportedly claimed that MI6 had framed him. According to the inquiry report, Lugovoy protested, saying, quote, I was framed. I suspect this was some British intelligence operation involving Litvinenko and possibly Berezovsky that went wrong. I was contaminated by Litvinenko or someone else, not the other way around. I think polonium was planted on us and left in places we visited to frame us, end quote. However, the inquiry report explains that a setup like Lugovoy was describing would have required the conspirators to contaminate a variety of places around London with a radioactive substance, putting an enormous amount of people in danger. Owen goes on to say, quote, I will simply say that in all the oral evidence that I have heard during this process, in all the many thousands of pages of documents that I have seen, I have not come across anything that would even begin to substantiate the claims of a setup made by Mr. Lugovoy, end quote. Yeah, if this was something that was orchestrated by the British government, you don't think they'd put this many British citizens in fucking, danger.
Yeah, that'd be like really
That's all they
stupid.
got, They're that little island out there.
Yeah.
It's a big island, but they're not poisoning their own folks.
Yeah, I mean, I think if they wanted these two guys gone, there's probably a better, more discreet way to do it. Moreover, Litvinenko's death seemingly fits into a pattern of strange deaths in the UK that have since been linked to Russia. In 2013, Boris Berezovsky was found dead in his home in the UK. The authorities said there was no sign of a struggle, making it seem like a suicide could be an explanation. However, Berezovsky had plenty of enemies in the Kremlin. In 2012, Alexander Perpolichny, a financier who demonstrated evidence that Russian tax officials had allegedly committed fraud, died unexpectedly while running in Surrey. According to U.S. spies, there is intelligence that indicates he was likely, quote, assassinated on direct orders from Putin or people close to him, end quote. In March 2018, a British spy and former Russian official and his daughter were poisoned with a nerve agent that left them in critical condition. Perhaps the most striking part of this case lies in Litvinenko's own certainty in who was responsible for his death. In an interview with the Metropolitan Police Service, Litvinenko said, quote, "I have no doubt whatsoever that this was done by the Russian secret services. Having knowledge of the system, I know that the order about such a killing of a citizen of another country on its territory, especially if it is something to do with Great Britain, could have been given by only one person. That person is the President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin."
Yeah, it's probably him.
Litvinenko's confidence in knowing his own killer would lead The Guardian to title an article about the case, Alexander Litvinenko, the man who solved his own murder.
Shit.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts that it's the poison is taking effect. He sort of has this inevitable demise coming his way.
Yeah.
And he's got a few weeks
Yeah.
to just sort of solve his own death? That's nuts.
Also, I mean, at that point, you know you're gonna die.
Yeah.
Might as well just say everything you want. What are they gonna do? Kill you again? Like, it's not like they could you're gonna die, so you might as well just get everything out there. I guess you would have to be maybe worried about your family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
It's
guess that would be a
sad.
thing to think about, but
Real bummer.
the second theory is that Litvinenko's death could have been in the interests of those in the UK who wanted to avoid being extradited to Russia. Lugovoy even suggested that Boris Berezovsky was involved in Litvinenko's death, while denying his own culpability. Others have speculated that Berezovsky could have been responsible for the murder as a means of sullying Putin's image. The inquiry report acknowledges that some accuse Berezovsky of ordering Litvinenko's death out of fear that Litvinenko could potentially blackmail
Don't
him.
we all know
The
it
report
was
also
it was
concedes
Putin?
that Litvinenko had at times spoken about,
Was
quote,
one in the
taking some form of
KGB?
action against Mr. Berezovsky,
Whatever
end
the fuck
quote.
they're called.
Though, the report also notes that it doesn't appear he ever took any of these actions. The report says, quote, "It was not unusual for Mr. Litvinenko to propose courses of action in conversation with friends and associates that never subsequently came to anything. Mr. Litvinenko and Mr. Berezovsky remained friends until the end of Mr. Litvinenko's life. There was no blackmail, and therefore no motive for Mr. Berezovsky to have Mr. Litvinenko killed." End quote. In addition, the report notes that it was Lugovoy who actively canvassed the idea that Berezovsky was behind Litvinenko's death. It's a lot of logical leaps, or illogical leaps, I should say, to make for this theory to be correct.
It would be a rough life to know that all your friends could kill you at any moment.
That would
Yeah.
suck ass.
It'd be even surprising if you didn't see it coming.
Yeah,
Some people see it coming, though, and there's nothing they could do about it.
that's true.
Nothing they could do about it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't like this bit, Ryan.
What bit are you talking about?
Nothing. Let's continue.
The third theory ties into the suggestion made by Izvestia, a Russian newspaper, that Litvinenko could have killed himself if he was suffering from a terminal illness of some kind.
It was probably
It
not
said, quote,
this
"If he knew he was
theory.
dying, he may have taken poison and signed whatever papers his allies brought to him," end quote. Lugovoy's lawyer also asked that the inquest into Litvinenko's death consider, quote, "death by misadventure and suicide," end quote. However, the inquiry report explains how Marina Litvinenko, Alexander Litvinenko's widow, provided evidence that Litvinenko was active around the time of his poisoning, not suffering from depression. She noted that as long as she had known her husband, she had never known him to consider killing himself. Friends supported Marina's views on this matter. The report also notes that it seems as though Litvinenko had no access to polonium-210 before he was poisoned.
Well, of course he didn't.
Where else? How would
does
you?
have
How
that?
would you
Apparently
really
these two
get
guys
it?
What do you even get? You don't go down to the corner shop. Oh, give me some Twizzlers and some polonium 210.
Yeah, apparently these two guys had access to it so much that it was fucking falling out of their jacket
That's because
pockets.
they were given it by
Putin? Easy. This seems like a good time. If you're watching this, Putin, you know, I'm just reporting what's already been reported here. So you're really just killing the messenger if you kill me.
You got bigger fish to fry. You
Really,
know?
if you're concerned about us two, your list must not be that impressive. These two guys that he sent out to kill even this high-ranking ex-Russian agent, they don't seem like the sharpest tools in the shed either.
A couple of Keystone Cops.
He sent Paul Blart after him. So you know what? Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe he'll.
Yeah.
He
I
could
think
probably
Paul
send out,
Blart would
like,
have
his
been more
nephew or
competent
something.
than those
Yeah.
two.
His 10-year-old nephew. I don't know if he has one.
Craig.
Craig. He sent Craig to come kill us, and I think hopefully I'd be able to handle Craig. So who poisoned Litvinenko with the deadly polonium that would eventually lead to his demise, and at whose orders? While it's widely accepted that Lugovoy and Koftin are the only people that could have poisoned Litvinenko, we don't have a smoking gun on Putin ordering Litvinenko's assassination,
There's gotta be
despite the
someone
UK
high up
inquiry's
there.
conclusion that it was probably at Putin's orders. However, it's still important to note that theory number 1 is the only one that those outside of Putin's government and its
What? Okay. I gotta get a Band-Aid. My aunt cut herself earlier today. She's fine.
allies assigned genuine credibility. Nevertheless, Putin has dismissed the allegations against Lugovoy and Koftin in spite of pressure on Russia to extradite the two men to the UK. Lugovoy and Koftin remain at large. So in a sense, the strange tea time events that took place on November 1st, 2006 and the mysterious death of Alexander Litvinenko remain unsolved.
Was this coffin lead lined? But yeah, that is like kind of mysterious one. Dang it, I forgot how to do this. So yeah, I will see you guys in the next one. Later.